What's up guys, MG here again. Today we're going to do some pork chops. I decided to do something a little different. We're trying to cut back on some fat too, and trying to cut back on some of the red meat. So pork tenderloins it is today. First thing we're going to do here is get some heat under this pan and get this ghee cooked down. What I want to talk about is the marinade that I used for the pork tenderloins. Basically it's a wine marinade. It's a tablespoon of salt, a cup of white wine, half cup of cider vinegar, apple cider vinegar. We got 4 tablespoons of olive oil, 3 half cloves of garlic, half a cup of thinly sliced carrots, and half a cup of thinly sliced shallots. We've got some pepper in there, a couple of bay leaves, about a tablespoon of thyme, and about a 1/4 tablespoon of tarragon. You could add sage and basil if you wanted, coriander. I guess it's there are other flavors that you can add in here, but that's the base level mixture. Now, as this is melting down, this is homemade ghee, so basically it's just cooking off a couple of sticks of butter and letting the milk fat separate away from the butter oils. So it makes a really good cooking oil if you're using medium to medium high heat. I wouldn't use it for anything frying per se, but for sauteing or cooking in a pan, it's pretty good. So yeah, we've got the marinade already set up. These pork chops have been going at it for about 5.5 hours. And by the time we're done with this, what we should have, hopefully, is a nice set of browned center cut loins. And after that, we'll make a sauce. All right, so we're getting a little bit of smoke on the pan here. With that being said, we're going to go ahead and get these pork chops, or center cut pork, out of the marinade here. Don't worry about the vegetables too much. I have 3 here, and we're going to cover that just for a little bit. These are very fragrant when they come out of the marinade. We're going to take this marinade actually and set it aside because we're going to use some of that for the sauce. As you guys know, a lot of the recipes that I plan on doing are from Julia Childs. However, as I go through this, I plan on working with some other cookbooks and or master chefs. Basically, the idea here is to, 1, up my cooking game, and 2, show people that, even some old redneck living in SoCal can actually cook a decent meal. And this one in particular is relatively cheap. I think the 3 center cuts that I have here at Costco, we bought a pack of 9, I believe, and they were 25, 30 bucks. So they're not very expensive each. And the wine that I used in the sauce was a $5 bottle. So basically, once I do my sides for this, I've probably spent less to feed. I could probably feed 4 people off of this when I'm done. So we'll definitely have leftovers. But at $5 a pop, I'm beating McDonald's. With at home cooked things. So the total cost is pretty cheap. Now, as we're doing this, according to the recipe here, what we should do is brown the chops for each side for 3 to 4 minutes. Now I'm going to go 4 because probably 5 because these are thick cut. I'd say these are probably 2-inch chops, maybe 1.5 inches. And just so you know, this is a first time recipe. First things first, if you did notice, the chops were a little wet. I dropped them in the hot oil, and guess what? That's not a great idea. I probably should have patted these down and then put them in there, but me being hard-headed and maybe a little lazy, I did not do so. But live and learn. That's part of the deal. It even said so. Pat them down. And duh, you're putting them into hot oil. Water's not going to work very well. Of course, when I take this lid off, you're going to see that. So, because there's water all in it already. But let's see, we're probably looking at 2 minutes so far. And then we will flip these over. And once I get these all set aside on a plate, we're going to throw in a couple of tablespoons of butter just to get some more flavor in the pork, sorry. And then we will go back. Once these chops are done and I've got them set aside, we'll make a nice little sauce and we'll see how that turns out. I'm going to cut away and get some of the cooking in this video, and we'll see you guys in a minute. All right, we've been letting these cook for a minute. We're going to flip them over, and hopefully we've got a nice brown. Well, they're not as brown as I would have liked them to be. It looks like, for whatever reason, this pan is not heating evenly, but, you know, we can make adjustments in a little bit because we're not done with this. This is the initial, get things hot, get it started, and move from there. So I'm going to turn up the heat a bit on this next side, and we're going to let this go. And again, once I actually have these in a side plate and I get ready for the next step, we'll move on from here. All right, as you can see, I've cleaned up the pan here a little bit, and we've got the butter starting to melt. And what we do now is we take our pork chops, pork loins, whatever you want to call them, and drop them into this butter, like so. Which is perfectly fine. We're going to use some of these in the sauce later. So what I'm trying to do here is keep the stuff out that got burnt when we seared and just keep those natural juices in play. Now, what we'll do at this point is start to baste these. It's not that big a deal to do. Just pull back. Obviously, don't touch the sides of the pan. Cover these, and we'll continue to go until we get a nice, clean juice, which we're pretty close to already. So, we've got our pork chops all done. As you can see, we've got them plated on the side. So you can see those here. Nice and brown, beautiful coating. We've got the leftover butter here in the pan. So now we're going to move on to making the sauce. So the first thing we're going to do is get some flour in here, brown it up a little bit. So it should take about 2 to 3 tablespoons, roundabouts, because I'm not trying to do the full-blown recipe here. There we go. That should be plenty. And then we just want to kind of mix that around. Probably going to have to add a little more fat in here. Maybe not. Let's see. We want to kind of get this a brown color. Add just a little bit of fat to this. Not quite enough. That should help us out some. There we go. Now we're starting to get to a consistency that I want. And then we're going to take our sauce or our marinade and we're going to add right in here. So this should be our thickening agent, like that. Now we're going to get this up to a boil, which should not take much. All the time, constantly stirring in, laid underneath. In this case, we do want all the brown stuff out of the bottom of the pan. That's going to add flavor and thickness to this sauce. As you can see, it's starting to thicken up a little bit already. Now, when I'm done with this, which may take a little while, I will strain it, because I don't plan on leaving all the vegetables and or that in my sauce. Those were for the flavor, and should impart themselves pretty well this sauce as it cooks up. As this is boiling, we're probably going to have to salt it up a little bit. Should do that. And we will get this incorporated. So, I think it's a little too acidic. So, when all else fails, sugar. This is brown sugar. It should actually color this gravy nicely. Now we're getting some of the aromatics in that I wanted. You may have seen me taste the sauce. I did wash my spoon. I never go in and double dip if I'm cooking. Got a nice thick sauce now. Nice thick gravy. There we go. Much better. I'm going to strain this out. Put this over here. Adjust my camera. Now, could you use the vegetables for something else? I'm sure. Am I going to? No. It's a little spatula here. That's the other cool thing about making a sauce in the pan that you cooked in, especially with stainless steel. It really cleans out the pan as you're going, which makes cleanup easier later. All right. So then we're just going to kind of press down on this. Try to get as much of the sauce through as possible. Plus it incorporates the flavors that we were trying to work in. There you have it. Nice gravy for the pork chops. Now this does not taste like your mama's brown gravy, I'll promise you that. But it is a unique flavor, especially with the wine base. That little bit of sugar cut back on the sourness, which some people may like, but I know my significant other won't. And then we just kill these vegetables and we're all done. Said, pork chops here, like so. And we take our gravy and we pour right over top of those, like so. And there you have it. Basically pork loin with sauce ragout. I hope you enjoyed the video. We'll see you next time.